Chapter 10. Haircut. The morning dawned on desolation. Jennifer sat on a rock watching the sun come up over the remains of the Chiquino cabin. Her eyes were puffy and swollen, but she ignored the discomfort. It was no less than what she deserved. The camp bustled this morning, but Jennifer hardly registered the activity. She was too busy trying to pretend she wasn't watching Leo. He was with Bruce and Spill, the three of them securing supply caches to the back of the ATVs. He hadn't spoken or looked at her. She could hardly comprehend what she'd done last night. A part of her had always been fucked up. She knew that. She just hadn't realized how fucked up she really was. Leo had been counted as her closest friend up until yesterday. Now she'd fucked things up for eternity. If she thought an apology would do the trick, she'd be on her knees and begging forgiveness in a second. But there were no words to convey just how sorry she was. There was no way to explain why she was the way she was, at least not without coming clean about her shitty-ass dad. And hell would have to freeze over before she ever told anyone about that. Besides, there was no good reason for Leo to forgive her. Should he welcome her back with a hug just because she had a stupid sob story about a secret train wreck of a childhood? No. What she had done last night did not deserve forgiveness. There was nothing to do but live with the consequences of her actions. Piece by piece, she did her best to fold up the grieving, aching pieces of herself. She pictured a napkin neatly creased. Each fold made it smaller and smaller until it was so microscopic it could disappear in a dollhouse. She tucked it away and hardened herself. It was time to focus on killing Soviet fuckheads and getting cause to Nellis. Her sob story didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. She would throw herself into the mission and never look back. If she got lucky, maybe someone or something would kill her along the way and put her out of her misery. She grabbed her ponytail in one hand and her knife in the other. Watching the orange sun rays turn the clouds a soft pink, she sawed at her hair. The blade sliced through her locks without protest. She tossed her hair to the ground without even looking at it. "What are you doing?" Lena came up to her, staring at the lump of curly hair on the ground. "I'm supposed to look like a Soviet soldier." Jennifer gestured to the uniform she wore. It was slightly oversized and still had blood from the sentient who'd worn it before her. "Is that why you asked to borrow one of my sports bras?" Lena asked. "Yes." Jennifer glanced at her breasts, which were squashed flat thanks to Lena's small sports bra. "I pass for a guy now." Lena studied her with a critical eye. "Actually, yeah. A very pretty guy, but I think you might be able to fool anyone not looking too closely." She chewed her lip in thought. "Cutting your hair is a good idea. Will you cut mine?" Jennifer raised her eyebrows. "Are you sure?" "I'm the only one who can speak Russian besides Kaz. It will be better for everyone if I can pass for a boy." She wondered what Dal would think of his girlfriend without her long, dark brown hair, then decided she didn't care. He'd be thankful if it saved her life. "Fine. Turn around and let me see your braid." "Oh my God! What are you guys doing?" Julie stopped beside them, hands on her hips. With her posture and demeanor, it was easy to forget she hadn't been born a girl. Talking to Julie was like staring her guilt in the face. Jennifer swallowed her discomfort, forcing herself to meet Julie's eyes. "What does it look like we're doing?" Jennifer dropped Lena's severed braid onto the ground beside hers. "We're disguising ourselves as boys," Lena said. "Since we're going on the road as Soviets, it's best to look the part." "You could just hide in the tank," Julie suggested. I have no intention of hiding all the way to Nellis, Lena said. Give me that. She's going to look like a meth head if you keep going. Julie took the knife from Jennifer. I'll fix you later. Jennifer left them to it, striding over to one of the weapon caches. There was one inside the tank, but additional weapons and ammo had been strapped to an ATV. She pulled out a machine gun, 2 ammo cartridges, and a small Soviet-issued handgun. Once she was suitably armed, she slid onto the ATV. What are you doing? Leo looked up from where he finished securing extra supplies to another ATV, his eyes flat and cold. She was certain he'd never hated her as much as he hated her now. Shame mingled with relief, making her throat tight. In some ways, his hatred was more palatable than his kindness. It made it easier for her to focus on the mission. I'm riding in front of the caravan. She stared at him, waiting for him to argue or to try and talk her into riding in the tank, like Julie had done. Fine. Leo turned away and went back to his work. She'd earned that coldness. Swallowing, she folded her napkin a few more times, crushing down the emotions until she felt calm again. 30 minutes later, the caravan was loaded and ready to go. They gathered around a map Leo had spread on the ground. Using his finger, Leo traced their route. We're going to cut through Napa and take country roads all the way to the I-5, he said. It's our best chance at moving through enemy soldiers undetected. That was true. The roads through Napa Valley were narrow and winding. The Soviets would have a hard time patrolling them, although it would likely be a different story once they arrived in the city of Napa. It was easily the size of Rossi and would probably have some type of headquarters there. If we do run into troops, Leo began. When we run into troops, Nona corrected. When we run into troops, Leo said. Kaz will do the talking. You all right with that? He glanced at the big Russian. I will do the talking, Kaz agreed in his rumbling voice. I'm back up, Lena said. Julie had turned Jennifer's rudimentary hair sawing into a cute pixie cut. With her baggy uniform hiding her chest, it was easy for Lena to pass as a young soldier. Your accent might give you away, Kaz said. But you can be backup. It's always good to have backup. You're riding with Jennifer, Leo told him. Lena, you're with me. Spill and Bruce, you have rear guard. Anton, you're in charge of the tank's gun. Nona, are you clear on how to drive the tank? He gave me lessons. Nona didn't look in Kaz's direction, but it was clear from the acid in her voice who he was. I drove it a few times before you got home. Good, Leo said. Everyone, keep your eyes open. We're moving through occupied territory. Our goal is to get through any checkpoints without raising suspicions. Shoot only if necessary. Everyone understand? In response, Jennifer fired up the ATV and revved the engine. You coming? She said to Kaz. The group dispersed, everyone going to their assigned station. Kaz gave her a tentative smile as he approached the ATV and slid on behind her. We haven't officially met, she said. I'm Jennifer. Nice to meet you, Jennifer, Kaz replied. I am Viktor Kozlovovich. Anton calls me Kaz. She glanced over her shoulder at him, secretly relieved to have the big Russian riding with her. He was the only one guaranteed not to try and comfort her. She just might make it through the day without screaming. Kaz had defected from his country. She might not know the details, but she knew what it was to want revenge. Ready to get to Nellis and kill every bastard between here and there who stands in our way? She asked. His answer was immediate. Yes. She felt his conviction in the way the word vibrated against her back. "Yes, I am." "Good. You and I just might become friends, Kaz." She accelerated down the road, leading the caravan next to Leo and Lena. Jennifer never looked back as the remains of the Chiquino cabin disappeared from sight. Chapter 11. Orange Crush. A long, uneventful day of driving had them pulling off in a thick grove of oak trees somewhere in the Napa Valley that evening. Vineyards dotted the hillsides. Kaz shaded his eyes, taking in the red and orange hues of the grape leaves. Summer was transitioning into fall. The cold tundra of northern Russia, where he'd spent most of his life, resembled a barren wasteland compared to this place. The generals who'd planned the invasion had known what they were doing when they targeted the rich farmland of California. "I like autumn here," Kaz said, as Jennifer slid off the ATV. It was an attempt at small talk, a strategy for endearing himself to the snipers. "It's very beautiful, especially compared to where I am from." "I've always liked autumn." Jennifer gazed out at the turning vineyards, expression unreadable. "When I was a kid, it was a reminder that no matter how shitty things got, time moves on." She walked off without any further explanation. Kaz stared after her, intrigued despite himself. Whatever she carried around had made her hard. It could be the death of her sister, but it could also be more than that. Whatever the case, it was clear she suffered. He felt it as keenly as he felt his own suffering. Focusing on pain accomplished nothing. Kaz decided to turn his attention to Valentina. She was already busy delivering orders in the center of the camp. She had Julie and Lena fetching supplies from the tank. Spill was off gathering firewood. Trials 1 and 2 with Valentina hadn't gone very well. He'd been mulling over new options and was ready to deploy a new test in an effort to win some favor with her. Trial number 3. Make himself a willing servant. "Valentina." He kept his voice small, as he had done for his entire career in the experimental science division. A small voice made him seem less of a threat to both his superior and his test subjects. "I would like to help. What would you like me to do?" His voice and posture were the meekest they had ever been, but Valentina narrowed her eyes at him. She grunted in disgust and turned her back. "Nona," Anton limped over. "Kaz is trying to be helpful. I don't need his help." Valentina raised her voice as Lena and Julie popped out of the tank. "Make that 3 jars of sauce," she said, "and don't forget my oregano." "Maybe Kaz can get some water to boil the noodles?" Anton suggested. "Fine," Valentina snapped. "And he can wash all the dishes when everyone is done eating. You, Antony, get someone to help you get the forks and bowls." Anton gave Kaz a shrug before limping away. Trial number 3. Failure. Kaz made a mental note of it as he rummaged a large pot from the supplies lashed to an ATV. No matter. He was nothing if not patient. He would determine another angle to try soon. Jugs of water had been loaded into the tank. Kaz retrieved one and joined Spill at the campfire. Soon, noodles were boiling in the water. Everyone gathered around the flames. Amanda pulled out a stack of blankets. She smiled at Kaz as she handed him one. "Hope you don't mind sleeping rough." Leaning forward, she whispered, "I hate roughing it. When the war is over, I'm never going to sleep outside again." Her smile was conspiratorial and light-hearted. He returned her smile wishing Valentina was half as easy to win over as Amanda.
"I think that is a very fine plan. I hope to do the same."
He decided not to tell her that he'd spent most of his life sleeping on a cot in a closet with nothing but a thin wool blanket. Sleeping outside under the stars on a warm night was 1,000 times better than that. Dinner was served. Cos found himself with a generous bowl of freshly cooked noodles smothered in a savory tomato sauce. As he was about to take a seat on the ground, Amanda and Julie came up to him.
"Over here."
Julie gave him a conspiratorial wink.
"We have something to show you."
What were the girls up to? He followed them to the side of the tank, where they gestured for him to join them in a tight circle. He was 3 times the size of Julie and twice the size of Amanda. Cos felt like a giant as he sat down with them.
"You know we lost our best friend, right?"
Julie said.
"Cassie, da. She is the one who sacrificed herself to blow up the bridge."
Julie and Amanda exchanged shared looks of sadness. Cos realized he may have come across as callous to their pain.
"I am sorry for your loss,"
he said. And then, in a calculated effort to appear empathetic, he added,
"I know how it feels."
Amanda exhaled.
"Your wife and son?"
"Da."
"We promised one another we weren't going to cry anymore."
Julie straightened her shoulders and reached into her backpack.
"We're going to remember our friend and,"
she gave Cos a quick smile,
"make a new one."
She pulled 3 cans from her pack and handed one to him.
"What is this?"
Cos inspected the can. It bore a picture of an orange slice on it.
"Orange Crush,"
Julie replied.
"It was Cassie's favorite soda. I found them in the cabin. There were only 3 of them, and they were buried in the back of a cabinet behind Rice-A-Roni. Anyway, I thought it was a sign that Cassie was coming back to us. I stashed them away so the 3 of us could celebrate when she got back."
The soda can suddenly felt very heavy in Cos's grasp. Of all the people in camp, the girls had decided to give Cassie's soda to him. They'd picked him over Jennifer.
"Why me?"
he asked.
"Because we know you've lost everyone you love,"
Amanda said softly.
"You've lost everyone, and you can't ever go home. We just want you to know you have friends."
He would have been less surprised if the girls stabbed him in the back while he slept.
"You don't want to give it to Jennifer?"
"Jennifer is..."
Julie chewed at her bottom lip.
"We think Jennifer needs space right now. Besides, we really want you to have it. Come on, try it."
A soft hiss escaped the can as she pulled the tab. An unexpected warmth flooded his chest. He didn't want to like these girls. They were a means to an end, nothing more. And yet, he was alone in this country with nothing but his desire for vengeance to keep him company. Until this moment, with Julie and Amanda sitting expectantly on either side of him, he hadn't admitted just how lonely he'd been. And here they were, letting him know he wasn't alone. He didn't deserve their friendship, but as he stared down at the can of Orange Crush, he realized he was desperate for it. He popped open the can and took an experimental sip. Sweetness exploded across his tongue and made his mouth pucker. Julie burst out laughing at his expression.
"I can't tell from your face if you love it or hate it."
He wrinkled his nose and took another swig, this one bigger than the last. The sweetness wasn't so shocking the second time around.
tastes like candy," he said.
Do you like it?
"Ah, yes."
Cos took another swig. Julie grinned in delight.
I knew you would. Do you have soda in Russia? Amanda asked.
"Baikal," Cos said. "Soda made from black tea and ginseng. Very good."
To Cassie. Amanda raised her soda can. To Cassie. And to everyone else we've lost, Julie said.
Cos raised his can and clinked with the girls. Even though his scientist's brain demanded that he stop, that he pull away from them, he couldn't bring himself to stir. Chapter 12. After Death. They were up and moving before dawn. Nona doled out slices of bread with jam for breakfast. Jennifer did her best to enjoy it, knowing there wasn't much more bread, but the slice tasted like dust in her mouth. She made herself swallow, if only to keep her body fueled for whatever the day brought. If she wanted to kill Soviets and avenge Cassie, she needed to stay fed.
"Good morning."
Cos greeted her from the back of the ATV they shared, ready and waiting for her.
Ready to kill some scumbags today?
"I prefer to cover ground and get one day closer to Nellis,"
Cos said.
"But if there are scumbags, as you say, along the way, that is okay."
Jennifer felt the smile pull at the corners of her mouth. She compressed her lips, not in the mood to be pleasant. As she jumped astride their ATV, she darted a quick look at Leo. Shadows hung below his eyes. The stubble on his neck and jaw made him look haggard. "The first order of business is to find a gas station," Leo called. "Remember, the tank needs diesel. Keep your eyes peeled." They headed down the road, Jennifer and Leo's ATVs at the front of the column. It felt good to be moving. She kept up a constant scan as they rolled down the road, alert for any sign of danger. Her machine gun hung from around her shoulder, resting in her lap for easy access.
"What do you Americans believe happens when someone dies?"
Cos's question came out of nowhere. Jennifer was so lost in her own thoughts, it took her a moment to register the question. "What happens when someone dies?" she echoed. "You mean, like, do we bury our dead? Or cremate them?"
"No. I mean, what do you think happens?"
The question made her shift uncomfortably. She'd almost rather stab herself in the eye with a pointy stick than answer. She could smell the dirt and oak trees back at the Chiquino cabin when she'd goaded Leo into fucking her. "Most Americans believe in heaven," she said evasively.
That is interesting. So you believe that souls continue to exist after the body dies? That there is a God and he lives in heaven with departed souls?
That's what most people think, yeah. Why are you asking me this?
We do not believe such things in Russia. We do not believe in a benevolent God in heaven somewhere. Religion and gods are a form of enslavement.
Why are you asking me these questions if you already have your own beliefs?
That is the problem. I was taught to believe these things. I also used to think all Americans were fascist scum. It is what we were taught since childhood.
He said it so matter-of-factly. "What do you believe now?" she asked.
About which one?
She snorted. "Let's start with Americans. Do you think we are all fascists?"
No, though you are very independent and colorful.
From what Jennifer knew about Russia and what went on behind the Iron Curtain, she could believe they, especially the snipers, would be very colorful.
What do you believe, Jennifer?
She didn't play dumb with the question, but she was getting annoyed. The invisible walls loomed up around her. What do you care what I think? Her chest grew tight with pressure. She saw her sister standing in the darkness on the loomer bridge, blood dripping from the sentient bite on her hand.
I have done many questionable things in my life, Ka said. I never stopped to consider there might be a soul lodged in a body.
So why are you thinking about it now? In the middle of Napa Valley while you're riding on an ATV with me, she wanted to add, but managed to clamp her mouth shut before the words came out.
I think my Paulina saved my life after the battle at Chiquino Cabin.
Cause described the honeybee that got his attention and led him to seeing the sentient before it had a chance to shoot him.
Had the bee not landed near the sentient, I would have died.
You think your wife sent the bee to save your life? Jennifer repeated, more dumbstruck than anything. It was the craziest thing she had ever heard, which was saying something, considering they were living through a zombie apocalypse and Soviet invasion.
She loved bees. She was the only woman in the village who kept a hive. We always had jars of honey in the house.
So what? Now you believe in souls and an afterlife since the bee saved your life?
It has led me to ponder life after death, yes, he said. I am not a religious man, but I am a scientist.
Do you think you can use science to prove life exists after death?
No, not without a lab. But evidence can be gathered in the absence of a lab.
Jennifer couldn't hold back her scorn any longer. My sister died.
I know. I am sorry for your loss.
My point is, she's dead. The words made her feel like someone was digging her heart out of her chest with a spoon. She's gone. No amount of wishing and waiting for honeybees is going to bring her back. Another long pause, long enough for Jennifer to regret her harsh words.
I see.
Cause's voice was neutral, no trace of anger or rebuke.
You think that in my grief, I am seeing things to bring me comfort?
Pretty much. She'd never been good at mincing words.
Ka shocked the hell out of her by saying, It could be that you are correct.
She wished she wasn't driving so she could get a proper look at his face. Are you just saying that so I'll shut up?
No, I am scientist. I must consider all possibilities. I will continue to observe. It could be, as you say, and that my mind is looking for comfort when there is none to be had. Or it could be that my Paulina's soul is still alive and with me.
Jennifer clamped down on a sudden flood of emotion. Cassie is gone, she told herself firmly. Don't waste energy pretending otherwise. It's a waste. Why does it matter? She asked.
Does what matter?
Truth. Why does it matter? Pick the one that makes you happy and move on.
You do not do this. You pick a truth that makes you very unhappy.
Perceptive asshole. It's not truth I have a problem with. Fairy tales are what makes me unhappy, she replied. They're bullshit. I'll take pain and unhappiness over bullshit any day.
I see. So you will not undertake this experiment with me? All you have to do is observe. See what comes with each day. Perhaps you will see evidence of your Cassie the way I saw evidence of Paulina.
Sorry, Cause. You're on your own. Bandages and duct tape were all that kept her together.
What is that term you Americans use? Batshit crazy. I think you think I am batshit crazy.
Not crazy, just delusional.
If someone had told you a month ago that zombies were real, would you have called them delusional?
Yes, she grimaced to herself. Okay, point proven, but I'm still not going to help you.
Because you think I am in a fairy tale?
Yes.
Okay, I will let you know what I discover anyway.
Knock yourself out, man. Chapter 13. Vultures. The oak trees and vineyards fell away as a town came into view. It was Calistoga, a tiny hamlet known for its hot springs. Jennifer had been shopping in Calistoga a few times with her mom and sister. The main street had lots of cute boutique shops, but they'd never visited any of the hot springs. Once upon a time, before the world had gone to shit, Jennifer had planned to go to a hot spring eventually. It was weird to imagine a life where she had the energy to want such a thing. As Calistoga drew closer, Jennifer noticed the outskirts of town looked unscathed. All the cars were intact, and there were no bodies in the street. Maybe the Soviets didn't bother with Calistoga, she said.
Maybe, Kaz replied. Or maybe the survivors cleaned things up.
Calistoga looked a lot like the farmland around Bastopol, an occasional house and barn interspersed between vineyards. As they reached the town proper, a tiny neighborhood sprang up on the north side of the highway. There couldn't be more than 100 homes in the small subdivision. The stillness of the town unnerved her. If not for the cars and trucks parked in driveways and on the street, she would have thought the town was deserted. There wasn't a person or a moving vehicle anywhere in sight. Unless a cleanup crew had been through the town, Calistoga looked miraculously untouched by the invasion. A gas station loomed up ahead at an intersection in the road. A pair of vultures sat on the overhang above the pumps, watching them approach. Leo decelerated, pulling up alongside Jennifer and Kaz. He kept his gaze focused on the gas station when he spoke. "It looks deserted." Lena chewed her bottom lip. "I can't decide if that's a good thing or if I should be nervous." "We need gas," Leo said. "And this place has a diesel pump. We'll fill up here. Be ready to drive like hell at the first sign of danger."
"I will refill the tank," Kaz said. "Your grandmother and Anton should stay inside in case we must leave in hurry."
"The ATV should be refilled too," Jennifer said. "Put Julie and Amanda on refill duty with me. Everyone else can keep watch." "Fine." Leo pulled away. He drove up alongside the slot visor on the tank, speaking to Anton through the opening. Circling back around, he relayed the information to Bruce and Spill before coming back to the front of the caravan. The vultures took flight as they approached the gas station, wheeling in lazy circles overhead before flying out of sight. Jennifer tried not to read into their presence. Vultures were just native to this area. Just because a few of them were hanging around didn't necessarily mean there were dead bodies. Jennifer took the farthest pump for her ATV, positioning herself so she had a clear view on the other side of the intersection. The road to the right led to the tree-covered hills that flanked Calistoga. The road to the left led into the downtown with its boutique shops. "Maybe we can find Cassie something girly to wear in one of the shops." Her mother's words floated back to her from a time that no longer existed. "Cassie looks just fine the way she is," Jennifer had retorted. The irony was that Cassie had been the spitting image of their mother, tall and curvy. Their parents' rotting marriage was part of the reason their mother fussed over Cassie's appearance. She couldn't remake herself, so she tried to remake Cassie. Jennifer glared up and down the road, itching to shoot something. A stray piece of paper blew past the gas station, carried along on the dry summer wind. She followed it with her eyes as it turned a few lazy curlicues over the asphalt. It bumped up against something, halting just on the edge of her visibility. It created the illusion of the paper standing upright on the sidewalk. Something was off. Jennifer took a few steps farther into the road. Awnings covered the sidewalks on both sides of the street. A large object sat in the shadow cast by the western awnings. It took Jennifer a second to realize what she was looking at. A pile of bodies sat in a tall mound on the sidewalk. But they weren't just bodies. From where Jennifer stood, she saw the head of every last person had been smashed open. Small piles of blood and brains dotted the sidewalk and the road. These were sentient victims. Who else would smash open heads and leave the bodies in a neat pile? Mutant zombies never did anything so neat. The vultures she'd seen earlier swooped in on silent wings. They landed on the bodies, their red, leathery heads pecking into the dead bodies. Chapter 14. Gas Station. Her gag reflex activated. Bread and jam from breakfast surged up her throat. "Leo." Her voice was flat as she called out to him. "What?" He didn't look at her. "You need to see this." His eyes flicked in her direction. The muscles along his neck and shoulders tensed when he saw her expression. "What is it?" He strode over to her. "Sentients have been through here. Look." She pointed down the street. Leo stared at the pile for a few seconds. "Motherfuckers," he snarled. Spinning on his heel, he marched back into the gas station. "Sentients have been through here," he called. "Everyone, stay alert. Let's finish filling up and get the hell out of here." Jennifer took one last look at the bodies before hurrying back to her ATV and filling it with gas. She'd seen a lot of disturbing shit since the invasion. Zombies. Mutant zombies. Friends, family, and innocents murdered. It was fair to say her life had been a series of disturbing events ever since the invasion. But there was something about the pile of bodies with broken heads that gripped her with a fear she couldn't explain. It felt like a hint of darker things to come. Not wanting to think about shit getting worse, could shit get worse? She yanked the fuel nozzle out of the ATV and jammed it back into the pump. Her elbow knocked the gas tank lid to the ground. She bent over to retrieve it, and a bullet whizzed over her, hitting the pump. Glass and plastic exploded. Jennifer let up a shout of alarm and threw herself to the ground. Cries went up from her friends as they also dove for cover. More bullets whizzed into the gas station. They pinged off the pumps and thudded into the ground. Jennifer remained in a crouch, sandwiched between the gas pump and the ATV. After a few seconds, she was able to discern the bullets came from the direction of the gas station shop. She peeked out from behind the ATV. A few rifles rested along the rooftop edge, but she couldn't see anyone. They were obviously doing their best to stay out of sight. Raising her machine gun, she took aim. So what if she couldn't see anyone? She'd give those assholes a good scare and maybe hit one or two of them if she got lucky. She laid into the trigger and let loose a spray of bullets. Her friends joined in. The tank began to rotate, the cannon swinging around in the direction of their attackers. The front windows of the shop shattered. More bullets peppered the eave of the tar and gravel rooftop. "Soviet scumbags!" someone shrieked from the rooftop. Return fire followed. The words shocked Jennifer. English. Whoever shot at them spoke English. "We're Americans!" Jennifer shouted, straining to be heard over the gunfire. She set her gun down and cupped her hands over her mouth. "Stop shooting! We're Americans!"
"The hell you are!"
someone called back.
"You're fucking Russian pigs!"
The situation rearranged itself in her mind. She and her friends were dressed like Soviets. They drove a Soviet tank. They wanted to pass as Soviets. Apparently, their disguise worked with flying colors. "Stop shooting!" Jennifer cried, this time speaking to her companions. "They're on our side." "Cease fire!" Leo's order cracked across the gas station. The gunfire trickled to a stop. "We're Americans," he called. "We're Americans just like you." "You lying motherfuckers! Why are you driving a Soviet tank?" "We commandeered it," Leo replied in a calm voice. "Bullshit! Who steals a Soviet tank?" "The snipers do." This time it was Dal who spoke. "The snipers?" A hint of doubt crept into the voice. "We're the snipers. Have you heard of us? We're from West County. I'm DJ Sniper. We stole a Soviet tank. We're on a mission." Silence. The snipers didn't move. Finally, a different person spoke from the rooftop. It was a woman. "We know of the snipers," she said. "We listened to all of DJ Sniper's broadcasts." "Do you recognize my voice?" Dal asked. "It's me. Look, I'll come out. Don't shoot, okay?" Jennifer glanced across the station to where Dal and Lena crouched behind Leo's ATV. Dal handed Lena his gun. "I'm coming out unarmed," Dal said. "Don't shoot my ass, okay?" Fuck. Jennifer returned her attention to the rooftop, pulling a grenade from her belt. She didn't want to kill her own countrymen, but if they attacked Dal, she'd have no choice. Leo and Lena were the only others she could see from her vantage point. They both had their machine guns aimed, both ready to shoot if necessary. "I'm coming out." Dal slowly stood up from behind the ATV. "Don't shoot me." He walked to the center of the gas station, hands raised the entire time. "I'm a true blue American, just like you."
"What about the rest of your companions?" someone asked. "How do we know they aren't Russians holding you at gunpoint?"
"Look," Dal said, "we could kill all of you. We have a tank. But we don't want to hurt you. We just need to get gas, then we'll be on our way." The silence stretched. Jennifer held her fingers poised over the grenade, ready to pull the pin. The tension in the air shifted. She sensed it like air being released from a balloon. A second later, a woman stood up on the rooftop, revealing herself. She was thin, with short, curly gray hair. In her jeans and flannel shirt, she could have passed for a farmer from West County. She held her rifle like a person who knew how to use it. "My name is Anne," she said, "and you're stealing our gas. I'm glad to know you're not Soviets, but we don't take kindly to thieves." "We didn't know it was spoken for," Dal said. "We can trade for it. We have food and weapons." A few more people rose from the rooftops. They were all farmers in flannels and jeans, like Anne. They conferred as a group, speaking in a tight cluster. Anne came back to the edge of the roof and called down. "We can use some of those fine Soviet machine guns we see on that ATV." "Deal," Dal said. Jennifer stood listening nearby while Dal, Lena, and Leo carried out the trade negotiations with Anne's group. She wasn't in the mood to talk to anyone, but she hung close to the tank so she could listen in. "We weren't attacked in the initial invasion," Anne said. "We had time to prepare before radio and television went down. We hid in our homes and stayed vigilant. A few weeks went by. We never saw a single soldier. Then, 2 days ago, a caravan of Soviets drove into town. They broke into our homes and rounded us up like cattle. The people you saw on the main boulevard." Her voice broke off, nostrils flaring as she struggled to maintain her composure. "The Soviets ate their brains, didn't they?" Lena asked in a soft voice. Anne nodded, swallowing a few times as she gathered herself. Her group, only 9 people, shuffled uneasily, most of them looking at the ground. "If you heard Dal on the radio, you know about the zombies, right?" "Yes. We heard DJ Sniper's broadcast." She threw a grateful look in Dal's direction. "So, we knew what was going on, but we never heard about Russians eating brains." "They're not Russians. I mean, they are Russians," Dal said, "but they were all vaccinated against the zombie virus before they invaded. The vaccine mutates and turned them into monsters. They're like the zombies, but worse because they're smart." "We call them sentients," Leo said. "They're dangerous." They took a bunch of our people," said a middle-aged man. He was tanned with a belly and thick arms. "They took them prisoner and drove them out of town." "There's only 11 of us left," Anne said. "Everyone else is either dead or prisoner. We thought we were safe. When those bastards drove into town, we thought we would be safe if we stayed out of sight." "It's not your fault," Lena said. "They were ruthless before they became sentients." "What do you think they're going to do with our people?" Anne asked. Jennifer couldn't listen anymore. She knew exactly what was going to happen to those poor people. Cattle. That's all they were to the sentients. They'd been rounded up like cattle, and they were going to be eaten like cattle. The thought made her sick. She marched over to her ATV, desperate to be gone from this place. It was time to get back on the road. It was time to find some fucking Soviets and kill them. Leo broke the reality to Anne and her crew. Jennifer had to look away when she glimpsed the devastation on their faces. "They must be going to Napa," Anne said. "They headed east. Napa was hit hard in the first offensive." She glanced quickly at her companions before squaring her shoulders. "Can we come with you to Napa? If there's a chance we can save our people from those monsters, we have to try." Leo shook his head. "I'm sorry. We can't afford a detour. We have information that could turn the tide of the war. Thousands of lives depend on us." "You don't have to help us rescue our people," Anne said. "We'll go our own way once we get to Napa. Safety in numbers, right? Who's to say you won't run into another group of sentients between here and the city? We can help each other." "She has a point," Lena said. "They clearly know their way around a gun. We can help each other." Jennifer clenched her jaw. If these people wanted to live and protect what was left of their town, they needed to stay put. What they were talking about was a suicide mission. But what if it was Cassie who'd been taken prisoner? Jennifer would have burned the whole city of Napa down to get her sister back. She'd trade her life 10 times over just for a chance to save Cassie. It was a chance Jennifer would never have. Pain nearly made her double over the handlebars of the ATV. "Let them come." The words fell from her lips, the angles hard and cracked. If they want to try and save their friends and family, they deserve a chance. Leo didn't look at her, but his shoulder slackened. "You can come with us," he said curtly. "You take your own vehicles. We leave in 10, with or without you." Chapter 15. Negotiations. Cause stayed close to Jennifer. He hoped that by sticking by her side, he would escape the notice of the farmer militia. He suspected they might attempt to blow off his head if they guessed he was a Soviet. It would most certainly disrupt the trade negotiations that had just taken place.
"Why is he giving them so much?"
Cause asked Jennifer. He frowned in consternation at the large weapon cache Leo gave to the locals in exchange for gas.
"Leo is a nice guy," Jennifer said.
"But our mission, we need to be prepared for all obstacles."
"I agree, but trust me when I say you don't want to waste your breath arguing with Leo."
"But our mission,"
Cause said a second time.
"if we trade guns every time we need gas, we will have nothing left when we get to Nellis."
"I don't disagree," Jennifer said. "Come on, you ready to get out of here?"
Cause climbed onto the ATV behind her. Not for the first time, he was struck by the difference between himself and the Americans. He knew how to prioritize. Once a priority was set, everything else became secondary. That meant Leo should give as little as possible to the locals in exchange for the gasoline they required. What if 5 of those extra ammo cartridges turned out to be necessary to reach Nellis? To say nothing of allowing them to accompany the caravan to Napa. Cause filed away American generosity as a problem to sort out later. "Why are you going to Nellis?" Anne asked.
"That's the closest operational military base," Leo replied.
"I came from Nellis," Spill said. "All bases in California fell to the Soviets." "That's a long way," Anne said. "A lot of Soviets between here and there." "All the more reason for us to get on the road," Leo said. "What sort of information are you carrying?" Anne asked. "Maybe there's a way we can help?" Cause tensed, unconsciously gripping his thighs. The uniform he'd commandeered was too tight. It pulled across his back and shoulders as his muscles bunched. Leo shook his head. "It's top secret. We can't risk it falling into Soviet hands." "Damn straight," Jennifer muttered. "Fucking KGB bastards would torture it right out of them. Just ask Anton." Cause nodded in agreement, relieved Leo hadn't divulged the details of their mission. It was bad enough Anne and her people knew where they were going. One of the farmers brought a truck around while Leo and Anne continued to talk, Anne sharing what little intel she had about the road ahead. Knowing Napa had been hit in the initial invasion meant they would likely meet resistance there. Julie and Amanda finished filling the remaining ATVs and hurried back in the direction of the tank. As they passed a farmer in Anne's group, the man reached out and grabbed Julie by the arm.
"What the hell?"
He stared at Julie, eyes bugging as he took in her face and clothing.
"What the hell?"
he shouted.
"Let go of me!"
Julie tried to jerk her arm free, but the farmer held on tight. 2 other farmers closed in, both of them middle-aged men with graying hair.
"It's a fucking faggot,"
said one of the other farmers.
"Let me go!"
Julie's voice went up an octave. All of the snipers reacted, Jennifer included. She was off the ATV in a flash.
"Let her go," she aimed her weapon. "Take your fucking hands off her!"
The rest of the snipers closed in around the farmers, forming a tight circle.
"Don't even think about it,"
Leo said, pointing his gun at Anne as she started to react. The hardness of his voice could have given a Russian general a run for his money.
All of you, keep your hands where I can see them.
Kaz was gripped by conflict. His brain told him to stay where he was, not to do anything that might upset their mission. But the memory of Julie's smile when she handed him the orange soda gripped his chest. Before he could think better of it, he grabbed his gun and joined the snipers.
Let her go, Leo said. We don't want to kill you, but we will.
He's a fucking faggot, the farmer repeated. We should feed him to the sentients.
She is a sniper, Leo growled. She kills fucking Soviet bastards and is a valuable member of my team. I won't ask you again. Take your fucking hands off her. Right fucking now, or me and my team will kill every last one of you motherfuckers.
A ripple of fear stirred through Anne's group at the ferocity in Leo's voice. Kaz felt the truth behind his words. The young man wasn't bluffing. He hadn't known Leo for long, but judging from the looks on the faces of his companions, this level of intensity wasn't normal. He was on a knife's edge, much as Jennifer was.
Patrick, let the kid go, Anne said.
But,
I said, let him go.
Patrick dropped his hand. Julie glared before stalking over to the tank and climbing up the side. Leo waited until her pink tank top disappeared inside before lowering his weapon.
You can follow us to Napa, but we part ways there. Any of you so much as look at Julie, you'll answer to me.
He stalked off without another word. Anne's group rallied, huddling together near their truck.
Fucking idiots.
Jennifer strode back to the ATV. Kaz followed her, staring down at the gun in his hands. He'd been ready to blow the mission to help the snipers defend Julie. The realization hit him hard. What was happening to him? Why was he going soft now of all times? He was becoming like Leo and Dal. How could he hope to pull off his mission if his priorities weren't straight? These thoughts weighed heavily on him as Jennifer pulled out of the gas station and zipped down the 2-lane country highway. Chapter 16. Napa. Calistoga had been practically pristine. Not so with the town of Napa. Jennifer stood on top of her ATV, binoculars raised to her face.
Doesn't look much better than Rossi, she said. Abandoned cars everywhere. Bodies, too.
Any zombies?
Bruce asked. He and Spill had joined them at the front of the caravan for the recon. She continued scanning with her binoculars.
I don't see any that are still alive. Lots of bodies, though.
Lowering the binoculars, she handed them to Bruce, who stood next to her for his turn. Anne and her truckload of farmers had pulled to one side of the tank for their own recon, but they kept a fair distance away from the snipers. Apparently, they'd been rattled by Leo's ferocious protectiveness of Julie. Jennifer had been rattled by the display, too. Not because defending her hadn't been the right thing to do, she would have expected nothing less from him, but because of the violence she'd seen hovering just below the surface. Leo was barely holding it together. She suspected his protectiveness had to do with the fact that Julie was one of Cassie's best friends. Leo stood off to one side, staring at the distant town of Napa. He'd already taken his turn with the binoculars.
Kaz, he said, what do you know about the Soviet base of operation in Napa?
Nothing, he said. Petrov didn't share plans with me.
Who's Petrov? Spill asked.
Kaz hunched his shoulders.
My superior.
Jennifer saw something akin to hatred in his eyes. She was glad he was on their side. Kaz's outward mannerisms were soft-spoken, but she sensed a bear living inside him. "We have two shitty options," Jennifer said. "We can go straight through Napa and risk a run-in with sentients, or we can divert to back roads and burn through fuel by going the long way around." No one said anything. Leo continued to study Napa. Everyone else waited in silence for him to decide their next move. "We go in," Leo said at last. "We can't afford to waste the fuel needed to go around. I want our two Russian speakers on point. Kaz and Lena, that's you. If we're stopped, you'll be the ones answering. Bruce and Dal, I want you on top of the tank with Anton. You shoot anything that looks like a zombie, mutant or sentient or otherwise. Spill, you get Amanda. She'll drive with you at the back of the caravan. Everyone to their posts. Keep your eyes peeled." "What about them?" Spill jerked a thumb at Anne and her people. "I'll talk to them." Leo strode away. Jennifer followed, as did Spill and Bruce. Apparently, she wasn't the only one on edge with the people from Calistoga. The farmers, most of whom rode in the truck bed, cast furtive glances in their direction as they approached. "We're going through Napa," Leo said. "You can stay with us for as long as you like. There are likely sentient zombies in the city. If we get into a battle situation and you're still with us, I expect you to follow my orders. Understood?" Anne took in Leo and the rest of the snipers arrayed just behind them. "Yes, I understand." "Good. You're at the back of the caravan." They headed out, Jennifer and Kaz leading the way alongside Leo and Lena. The caravan drove down the 2-lane highway that ran into Napa. 10 minutes later, they reached the edge of town. The outskirts were quiet suburbs, much like Bastapol and Rossi. The taller buildings of the downtown rose in the distance. Dead bodies were everywhere, rotting, stinking, and covered with flies and maggots. Jennifer forced herself to look to make sure the dead they passed were truly dead. The stench of the rotting dead made her nostrils flare. Vultures took to the air in large groups as they passed. They reached a large intersection with shopping centers on all 4 sides. Bodies and vultures were everywhere. Jennifer's shoulders itched as they scanned the abandoned cars for any sign of an ambush. Lena consulted the map. "East," she said in a soft voice, pointing. They accelerated through the intersection. The road grew, spreading from 2 lanes to 4. A short time later, the boulevard rose in a steep incline. It became a wide bridge spanning the Napa River. At the base of the bridge were a dozen Soviet soldiers, all of them dead with cracked skulls. Chapter 17. Checkpoint. Kaz felt every cell in his body switch to high alert as the checkpoint came into view. The blood from the dead soldiers left circular red stains on the ground. Dried bits of brain made pinkish blobs among the gore. The bodies looked to be at least a week old. "These bastards were killed by sentients," Jennifer said grimly. "Kaz, why would Soviets eat other Soviets?"
"It happened in Rossi," Kaz said. "Those who became sentient turned on those who did not. Perhaps there is great hunger when one first becomes sentient." He shrugged. "I do not have research to explain this. It is only a theory." They slowed to a stop at the checkpoint. From the way Leo surveyed the bodies, Kaz guessed the young man weighed the wisdom of going straight through Napa instead of around. Sacrifice for the betterment of all. This belief had been hardwired into Kaz when he was young. Before life taught him it was a load of bullshit, as these Americans would say. But he knew the meaning of sacrifice. It was carved into his bones,
even if he no longer subscribed to Mother Russia's propaganda. If they detoured around Napa, they would lose time and gas. Both were things they could not afford to lose. Going through Napa was the only logical choice. It might require sacrifice, but it had to be done.
"We can't afford the time or the fuel to go around,"
Ka said softly, even though no one had asked him.
"We got lucky in Calistoga with the gas,"
which was saying something since they nearly had their heads shot off.
"There is no telling when we will find another accessible gas station."
Kaz is right, Jennifer said. We have to risk it. Leo stared at the bridge that rose high into the air, so tall that large ships could pass beneath it. We go through, he said. No stopping. We get through the city as fast as we can. If we see sentience, we fight our way through. What about you? This last question was directed at Anne, who had joined them at the bridge. She'd left her team of farmers in the truck. We need to find our people. Her eyes kept flicking to the dead bodies on the ground. I'm not going to leave them to end up like these bastards. We'll stay with you for a bit longer and split off when we're close to downtown. Fine. We're taking the most direct route through town. Leo took the map from Lena, spreading it on the front of their ATV. It follows the river. Once we cross the bridge, it runs east for a few miles before turning south. We follow it south straight out of Napa, but you should turn south before. He pointed to the map, circling an area with his index finger. I think this is the area where you'll find your people. It's the downtown. In Rossi, their headquarters were centered around the police station. Anne nodded grimly. Thank you. Tell your people to stay alert. Shoot anything that moves. They rolled out, moving as a unit over the bridge. The water below was silent. A few small vessels lay half-sunk near the shore. Other than a few birds, there was no movement on the water. More abandoned and wrecked cars littered the road, but these had been pushed to the far margins of the bridge, leaving a clear path for them to drive. Bodies rotted beneath the sun. Some were old, probably killed in the first days of the invasion. The rest were dead zombies. Kaz even saw a few of the anomalies. The snipers called them mutants. The dead zombies with misshapen bodies and distended muscles expressed yet another unexpected side effect of the Nejit virus. General Petrov and the other superiors in the government had moved too fast. They had accelerated Nejit vaccine production without adequate testing. They could not see beyond the singular objective of laying waste to America and claiming her soil for Mother Russia. They'd accomplished their objective, but the price was too high. Murder, mutants, sentience. It was all too much. They made it to the other side of the bridge unmolested. The road narrowed back down to 2 lanes. The river flowed by on the right. Homes, interspersed with shopping centers, lined the left. Hairs bristled along the back of Kaz's neck. It was a sensation he'd experienced back in the research lab whenever his superior, General Petrov, was nearby. Something was wrong. Slow down, he rumbled to Jennifer. Her body went rigid. What is it? Something isn't right. Why are you slowing down? Leo pulled his ATV alongside them. Kaz says something isn't right, Jennifer said. Kaz opened his mouth to explain, but he never had a chance. A dozen Soviets marched into the street a mere 2 blocks ahead of them. His heart sped up at the sight of them. To the casual observer, they looked like a patrol. In fact, that was probably the point, especially if they thought the caravan belonged to Soviets. Even from 2 blocks away, it was the way they moved that caught Kaz's attention. Their limbs were a little too fluid, their movements a little too fast. It was a subtle difference, but Kaz was trained to spot subtle nuances in everything. There were also the dead Soviets back at the checkpoints to consider.
Sentience,
He rumbled to Jennifer.
it's a trap to catch cattle.
Shit,
Julie snarled. It still startled him when American women swore. His Polina never said a foul word in her life, not even when Alexander had been taken from them. "How can you tell from so far away?" Leo asked.
I'm scientist, Kaz said. I am trained to observe.
"What are we going to do?" Lena asked. "There's a dozen of them." Kaz understood her fear. A dozen sentients was like facing off against twice that number. And they didn't have a clever trap on their side as they had back at the Chiquino cabin. "We have surprise on our side," Leo said. "We're all in uniform. I don't think they'll attack until they know of her sentience. We can wait until we're almost on top of them, then charge like bats out of hell and kill them before they have a chance to react. Or—" he glanced to their left, where a small side street opened up into a neighborhood. "Or we can run."
Charge,
Kaz said, even though he was pretty sure Leo wasn't talking to him. When Leo didn't immediately respond or shoot the idea down, Kaz pressed on.
Eliminate the threat now. They have already seen us. Reinforcements might already be on the way. Better to get rid of these sentients so they can't cause trouble later.
"I'm with Kaz," Jennifer said. "Running will just draw more of them after us, and we don't know our way around. We risk getting lost if we try to lose them in the neighborhood. That will give them the advantage over us if they've taken any time to learn the streets." "All right." Leo's mouth was set. "We move in close and take them by surprise. Wait for my signal before you open fire." He flashed 3 fingers at Anton and Bruce, who sat atop the tank. The boys passed the silent message to the rest of the caravan. Bruce also stuck his head into the tank, letting Nona and the others know what was happening. Jennifer and Leo accelerated, picking up their pace as they approached the trap. Lena, in her position behind Leo, readied her rifle. "You ready to cover me?" Jennifer asked.
Da,
Kaz said.
Stay low and drive. I'll take care of the sentients.
He adjusted his grip on the machine gun. "Does it bother you?"
Does what bother me?
"Killing your own countrymen."
No.
Kaz had been murdering his countrymen for decades. He wasn't proud of it. It was half the reason he had defected. But his past had prepared him for this mission in startling ways. Kaz had no reservations about gunning down his own people. When they were half a block away, Leo revved the engine. His ATV shot forward. Jennifer sped after him, leaning low over the handlebars to give Kaz a clear view of the sentients. He wasn't a great shot. He'd had basic weapons training. General Picott made sure everyone knew how to handle a gun, but he was nothing like Leo and the others. But he didn't have to be. He had a Soviet machine gun. Kaz aimed at the nearest sentient and pulled the trigger. He twitched the machine gun left and right, covering the general area where the sentient stood. More gunfire came from behind from Anton and Bruce. Amanda tore around the side of the tank on the third ATV. Spill's weapon blazed. Anne came up alongside the tank, her farmers firing from the back of the truck. Several sentients went down, their heads dissolving into a pulpy mass of blood and brains. With so many attacking, Kaz had no idea if he was responsible for bringing any of them down. It didn't matter. They died. That was all that mattered. 8 sentients were down, dead in the street. The remaining Soviets scattered. One was shot as he tried to charge at Leo. The last three raced toward the houses on the left side of the intersection, bounding up the side of a corner two-story. Cause and the others fired after them. Bullets broke windows and sent powdery puffs of stucco into the air, but the sentients disappeared from sight.
"Fuck!" Jennifer sped up. "We can't let them get away."
She leaned into the turn around the house. Leo and Lena were right beside them. Their combined weight made the ATV tilt dangerously. For a few panicked seconds, Cause thought they would tip over. The ATV settled as Jennifer zipped around the corner, but Cause's panic didn't recede. It went up another few notches. There, no more than a few houses away, was another dozen sentients, lying in wait for them. "Trap!" Jennifer shrieked. "It's a trap!" Chapter 18. Prey. A dozen sentients charged. Unlike the ones in the intersection, these made no pretense of looking human. Bloody leers painted their faces. Many had ripped and blood-stained uniforms. And they had guns. Shit! Shit! There wasn't enough time to make a U-turn. Jennifer threw the ATV into reverse. Cause fired over her head. Bullets whizzed in their direction, a few of them pinging off the front of the ATV. Leo and Lena were right beside them, their ATV also flying backwards. Jennifer's life narrowed to the span of a few seconds. They were outgunned and outnumbered. The sentients were going to gun them down and eat their brains. If they were lucky, they would do it in that order. A bullet grazed her above the elbow. Stinging pain shot up her arm. Jennifer screamed in rage. Her cry was echoed by Cause, a sound that carried a timbre of pain. A glance over her shoulder showed blood gushing out of his side. The sentients were 20 feet away and closing fast. Just when Jennifer thought she and Cause would be swarmed, the tank came around the corner. Anton and Bruce opened fire on the sentients, momentarily halting their onslaught. "Get down!" Jennifer grabbed Cause by the shoulder and yanked him forward. The tank fired. The ground erupted 15 feet in front of them. Sentients flew into the air like matchsticks. A cloud of shrapnel detonated from the point of impact. Grit and debris sprayed across them. Jennifer threw an arm across her face. Something cut through the arm of her uniform and stung her skin. "Get out of the way!" Anton shouted. Jennifer dropped her arm and veered the ATV to one side, making room for the tank. "Are you okay?" she asked Cause. "Fine," he said, though he didn't sound fine. He sounded pissed. "Were you shot?" "I'm fine." He fired at a wounded sentient who tried to crawl for cover. Cause wasn't a great aim, but he made up for it with persistence. 5 bullets did the trick. Another blast fired from the tank gun. More rubble and bodies spewed into the air. Jennifer and Cause hunched over again, protecting their faces from the shrapnel. A large piece of concrete hit the front of the ATV with a thud, leaving a huge dent. The tank continued to roll forward. Bruce and Anton fired from their top position. Dal had jumped off and was firing from a position on the ground. Shots continued from the tank's main gun, driving the sentients farther down the street. She spotted the rest of their group. Leo, Lena, Amanda, and Spill all on the ATVs. Anne's group, her people firing from their rifles over the truck's cab. Something flicked in her periphery. Jennifer looked up and saw a sentient leap from a rooftop. He flew through the air, heading straight for Bruce and Anton on the tank. She reacted on instinct, dropping the handlebars of the ATV and yanking her gun upright. "Bruce! Anton!" The rest of her words were lost in the chatter of her machine gun. The sentient landed on the tank with the agility of a spider. Several of Jennifer's bullets tore through his chest and arm. They slowed the bastard, but didn't stop him. He staggered several steps across the tank before leaping at Anton from behind. Jennifer's breath hitched in her throat. Anton was so fucked up from his tangle with the KGB, she didn't think he'd survive a one-on-one with a sentient. Right before the sentient collided with Anton, Bruce jumped in front of him. He and the sentient rolled off the side of the tank, narrowly avoiding the tread of the wheel links. A second sentient leaped off the roof. Anton fired, backing up across the tank. He sidestepped as the sentient landed. Dark blood dripped from the Soviet, but he remained upright. Amanda jerked her ATV to a stop and jumped onto the street. She took aim with a steely expression. Jennifer hardly recognized the sweet, timid high school girl who'd been best friends with Cassie. Amanda shot the sentient in the back of the head. The bastard, all his focus on Anton, never saw her coming. He dropped, brain matter dripping from his broken skull. Amanda dropped back onto the ATV and zipped away. In the meantime, Bruce and his sentient rolled across the ground in a fistfight. Jennifer jumped off her ATV and darted forward. The butt of her machine gun descended, delivering a hard blow to the sentient. It wasn't enough to kill him. The bastard had been moving too fast for her to land a killing strike, but it was enough to stun him. It bought Bruce a precious second. He yanked out a .22 from his belt and fired twice into the head of the sentient. Jennifer's chest heaved with exertion. Bruce, wiping blood from the side of his face, gave her a nod of thanks. Dust settled around them. More than half of the sentients were dead. The rest retreated, running full tilt down the street in the Napa subdivision. "Stop!" Leo banged on the side of the tank. "Reverse!" "Damn it!" Jennifer growled. She wanted to chase down these bastards and kill them. But Leo was right. Following the sentients would lead them away from the river and their fastest route out of Napa. "Nona, reverse!" Leo banged on the side of the tank again. "We gotta get the fuck out of this town!" Jennifer hurried back to her ATV, where Cause was attempting to tend to his wound. He peeled up the side of his uniform, revealing a deep gash in his side. "You okay? What happened?" She couldn't tell if he'd been grazed by a bullet or a piece of shrapnel.
"It's a scratch."
With a grunt, he tore off the sleeve of his uniform. The thread tore like tissue paper under his grip.
"The uniform was too small for me anyway."
Her eyes widened in surprise as she comprehended just how strong he was. Sure, Cause was a big guy, but she hadn't realized he had the strength of a bear.
"Drive,"
he said to her.
"I will bind my wound."
"Okay." She threw the ATV into a quick three-point turn, driving past the tank as it rolled backwards. She kept one eye on the sentients as they disappeared. Cause ripped the sleeve lengthwise and began wrapping it around his middle. "How bad is it?" she asked.
"Looks worse than it is."
He glanced at her.
"Like your arm."
She'd forgotten all about the bullet that grazed her arm. It hurt like a son of a bitch, but it was easy to ignore in the adrenaline rush.
"It will be fine,"
Cause said.
"We will disinfect it later."
"Works for me." She sped back into the intersection, taking up position on the northern end to keep watch while the tank finished reversing. Anne's farmers and their truck exited first. They were wide-eyed but unscathed. They'd done their part to fight the sentients. "That's not going to stanch the blood flow," she said, as Cause tied off his makeshift bandage. "You need some gauze in there."
"It's fine for now."
He pulled the hem of the shirt pack down over his stomach.
"Do you see any more sentients?"
He lifted his machine gun, ready for danger. Jennifer studied the surrounding buildings. Most were 1- and 2-story homes. On the far side of the intersection, beside the river, was a small strip mall. Everything was quiet. It should have put Jennifer at ease, but it only made the skin itch between her shoulder blades. She liked being able to see the enemy.
I don't think we've seen the last of them, Ka said.
What makes you say that?
The man I worked for, General Petrov, was very secretive. I know very little of the mission details, but Napa is large like Rossi. There must be more sentience.
His rationale made sense. The itchiness between her shoulder blades increased. "We've got to get the hell out of here," she muttered, impatiently tapping her foot as the tank finished its reverse into the intersection. Leo didn't waste any time. As soon as the tank was clear, he and Lena pulled their ATV back in front of the caravan. Jennifer fell in beside them. They continued on their way, pushing hard through Napa. Chapter 19. Herded. Blood quickly saturated the makeshift bandage around Kaz's middle and seeped down his side. He'd been cut with a piece of shrapnel from the tank round. The wound ached, but that wouldn't matter if they didn't get free of Napa soon. The deeper they went into the city, the worse the destruction became. More decaying bodies, more wrecked buildings. Smears of dried gore and blood soiled the road. The destruction was so bad in some areas, they were forced to detour. Every detour took them farther from the river and closer to downtown. Kaz had the uncomfortable feeling of being a rat in a maze. Something moved up ahead. Kaz hissed a warning, but Jennifer had already seen it. She pulled to a halt, as did Leo and Lena. 3 blocks ahead of them, 5 Soviets strolled out into the road. Their skin was covered with gray patches.
"Sentience," Kaz growled.
"What are they doing?" Lena asked. "Why aren't they attacking?" The 5 Soviets stood without moving, many of them smiling like bloody demons. Their hands rested lightly on the machine guns hanging from around their necks.
"Assume they are in communication with the escaped sentients we ran into earlier," Kaz said. "They are playing a game with us."
Leo's brow puckered. "What sort of game?" As if in response to Leo's question, another dozen sentients strolled into sight, joining the original 5. The new ones had been waiting in the wings, much like the ones they'd come up against earlier.
"They are sending a message."
Kaz's heart rate spiked even as anger took root in his gut. "What kind of message?" Lena asked.
"We cannot trust what we see."
Kaz tightened his grip on his gun.
"They want us to know they are one step ahead of us."
"Fucking smart zombies," Leo growled. "Why couldn't they all be like the shamblers in Romero's film?" "What are we going to do?" Lena asked. They all looked to Leo. His face was stone. "We go around."
"That leaves our backs unprotected," Ka said. "I would prefer to attack the sentients head-on."
"So would I," Leo said. "But there are too many, and we lost the element of surprise. It's too risky."
"They could follow us and attack."
"If they wanted to attack, they wouldn't be standing in the road smiling at us," Leo said. "Come on. We need to keep moving. Lena, keep the map out." Gooseflesh prickled along Kaz's arm as they retreated. Following Lena's directions, they took an eastbound turn 2 streets back. "Kaz?" Jennifer said.
"Da, yes?"
"We need to be ready to fight our way out of this place."
"Agreed."
He gripped the ATV with his legs, finger hovering over the trigger of his gun. They were forced to enter downtown Napa. Brick buildings rose tall on either side of them, turning the late afternoon sun into long shadows. They made it 7 more blocks before another contingent of sentients stepped out several streets ahead of them. There were only 4 of them this time, or at least, only 4 visible ones. Apprehension prickled the back of his scalp.
"Leo," Ka said, "we should charge."
"What if there are more hiding in wait?" Jennifer said.
Ka shook his head. "It is like that card game, I do not know the English word, where you lie about what you have in your hand."
"Poker," Jennifer said. "We call it bluffing." "You think they're bluffing?" Leo said.
"Yes. I think that's why they made the display last time, to scare us."
It was just the sort of thing Petrov would do. "Lena," Leo said, "is there an alternate route?" "We can turn right at the next street." "We do that," Leo said. "Let's roll." Kaz pursed his lips, but said nothing. He didn't blame Leo for wanting to avoid another battle with the sentients. It might be the right decision when all was said and done. "I really want to kill those fuckers," Jennifer growled as they took the next right-hand turn.
"Me too."
They made it another half-mile before a third group of sentients appeared. This time, they weren't in the street. They appeared on top of a building and opened fire on the street. They didn't shoot directly at the caravan, but their bullets hit the street directly in front of the 2 lead ATVs. Right as they opened fire, another handful of sentients rounded the corner, guns chattering as they, too, attacked. They aimed at the street in front of the caravan. "Retreat!" Leo bellowed. "Retreat!" He took aim at the sentients, laying down fire so the rest of the caravan could retreat. Kaz, Jennifer, and Lena joined him. The reality of their situation hit him. Kaz felt his hackles go up.
"Leo,"
he shouted over the gunfire.
"We can't retreat."
"We have to," Leo said. Kaz sucked in a breath, letting loose the big voice that lived inside him.
"We're being herded like cattle,"
he bellowed, cutting off Leo.
"Can't you see it? They don't want us going forward."
"Shit," Jennifer said, never letting up on her trigger. "Leo, he's right." Kaz was angry it had taken him this long to figure it out. The mind games, the random appearances of sentience with no acts of aggression. And now, finally, they decide to attack without actually trying to kill them? This was a play straight out of General Petrov's arsenal. He saw the moment when the truth hit Leo. The muscles of his neck and arms coiled like a snake.
"We have to go through," Kaz said. "Now, before it's too late."
"Attack!" Leo commanded, voice ringing down the street with authority. "Drive forward! Break through the line!" A boom reverberated from the tank. The eave of the rooftop exploded. Sentient bodies flew into the air. "Take cover!" Leo yelled. Bodies and chunks from the roof rained down. Kaz threw himself over Jennifer, sheltering her from the fragments of cement and brick that showered forth. A body hit the front of their ATV, leaving a smear of blood as it slid to the ground. Kaz looked up and glimpsed a pair of red eyes glaring at him through the dust. The sentient was missing an arm and half his chest had been ripped open from the blast, but he was still alive. Kaz raised his gun, but Jennifer was faster. Peeking up from beneath the shelter he provided, she fired straight into the sentient's face. "We have to get them while they're down." Jennifer pushed against him, reaching for the handlebars. Kaz straightened and freed her. Jennifer charged forward, driving straight for the next closest body. It was a sentient half buried under a pile of bricks. Kaz shot him. The ATV bumped over stray bricks as Jennifer went for the next closest sentient. Behind the tank, Anne's group fanned out. Her men jumped out of the truck, surging around the tank to attack on foot. Anton and Bruce fired on the enemy from atop the tank. The sentients, still on their feet, had taken cover in shop doorways. They fired on the snipers, but Cause observed they made very little effort to aim and hit anyone. They just kept spraying bullets to drive them back. Another shot came from the tank's cannon. The street erupted as another part of the building was hit. Sentients fell, but not enough of them died. And more kept coming, swarming into the street ahead of them. There were so many, at least a dozen. Too many, Cause thought wildly, shooting at one that dragged a broken leg across the ground.
There are too many.
A commotion went up behind them. "Rear attack!" Spill's voice cut through the melee. "Leo, they're closing in behind us! Another dozen—"
"Arr!"
His voice disappeared under screams from Amanda. In the same instant, Anne's group pivoted to face the second group of sentients that swarmed them from behind. Too many. They were about to be overrun. They were pinned like rats, and there was only one way out. A hard left just ahead of them. The sentient bastards were driving them to that turn, and if the sentients wanted them to go down that street, it was the last place the snipers wanted to be. He thought of the briefcase inside the tank, of the valuable information it contained. Their mission was on the brink of collapse. Something had to be done. For Polina. For Alexander. For all the poor bastards who had been sacrificed in Petrov's lab.
"Jennifer," he said, "get off."
"Fuck you," she snapped. "I'm not going anywhere."
"Fine, but let me drive."
They quickly switched spots.
"Leo," Cause said, "whatever you do, don't go down that street."
He jabbed a finger to the only apparent way out of their predicament.
"It's a trap. If I die, make sure you get my briefcase to Nellis. Prepare to retreat."
"What the hell are you doing?" Lena cried. "Cause!" Cause gunned the throttle. He turned the ATV in a sharp circle and sped past the tank, heading for the rear of the caravan. A retreat was their only remaining chance of escape, if they could make an opening.
"Anton! Bruce!" Cause bellowed as they shot past the tank. "I'm going to draw them out. Cover me."
As they passed the open street, the one Cause knew was a trap, he glanced down it. He had a brief impression of people, lots of people, all of them massed behind a fence. He didn't have time to think about it. The ATV shot past Anne's truck. 2 of her people lay dead on the ground. The sentients attacking the rear of the caravan had tucked into the recessed doorways of the buildings. They shot blindly into the street, still not making any real effort to hit anything. That was their only advantage, and it wasn't much.
"We have to make an opening for our people,"
Cause rumbled to Jennifer.
"Are you ready?"
"Fuck yeah! Let's get those fuckers!" The woman must have a death wish.
"You take the ones on the left. I'll take the ones on the right," he said.
Jennifer let up a high-pitched scream that nearly broke his eardrums as they came to the first set of recessed doorways. 2 sentients were in his range. Since they'd been hiding in the doorway, they hadn't seen him coming. Cause's bullets cut through their legs and dropped them. Jennifer was a better shot than he was. There was only one sentient on her side. She killed him with a single shot to the head. She spun on her seat, firing at the 2 Cause had disabled. 3 down. Cause kept driving. Chapter 20. No Way Out. They were in an impossible situation. Jennifer was certain she was going to be dead in the next 30 seconds. It was the best news she'd heard all day. "For you, Cassie," she thought, dropping a sentient as Cause zipped forward on their suicide mission. They hit the next recessed doorway. They had another 3 sentients to contend with. They bunched up together on the right side. She and Cause opened fire on them. One sentient went down when Cause shot out his legs. The machine gun tore through muscle and bone. She aimed for the head of the second. It took 2 shots, but she got him. A third one darted forward like a snake. He bore down on them, bloody teeth bared. A shot to the head felled him, but it wasn't from Jennifer or Cause. Leo and Lena came zipping out of nowhere. It was Lena who took down the sentient.
"What the fuck?" Leo said. "What the fuck are you guys doing?" "Clearing a path for a retreat," Jennifer snapped. "Go, Cause!" He drove forward before Leo could protest. She liked this ballsy Russian. He was as crazy as she was. "Get everyone out of here," she called back to Leo. "We'll clear the way." They neared the next group of sentients. Jennifer and Cause prepared to fire. Then something terrible happened. A third group of sentients entered the street in front of them. This new group was bloody and haggard, like they tangled with a tractor, or perhaps a tank cannon. It was the group that had escaped into the suburban neighborhood, Jennifer realized. The bastards had caught up to them. The trap closing in around them suddenly got tighter. "We have to take that side street." Leo pulled up alongside them. "There's too many."
"If we allow them to herd us down that street, it will not go well for us," Cause said.
"What choice do we have?" Leo replied. "If we keep pushing, we'll be overrun." Jennifer's mind raced. The sentients were hurting them. That much was clear. There had to be a way to flip the tables. She scanned the shops around them, searching for something, anything. A Mexican restaurant, an Oriental rug shop, a photography studio. How was she supposed to work with any of that? Where was a firecracker stand when you needed one? She forced herself to focus. Up ahead, near the newest cluster of Soviets, was a long bank of glass windows. The sign above the windows read, Napa Nissan, a downtown car dealership. And suddenly, she knew a way out. "Leo!" She quickly relayed her idea. He nodded in wordless approval, then sped away. He delivered instructions to Anne, who still drove her truck, then to Julie and Nona inside the tank. Cause backed the ATV into a doorway. It rolled on top of 2 sentients they'd killed and came to rest on top of them. Anne threw her truck into reverse. At the same time, the tank gun swiveled. The tank began to reverse on a collision course with the car dealership. The tank gun fired, shattering the bank of windows. Glass buckled, shimmering in the light shining down between the buildings. The tank rolled into the dealership, crunching over shattered glass and several sentient bodies. And suddenly, they had a way out. Not through the sentients, but around them. "Go!" Jennifer cried into Cause's ear. "Gun it!" The ATV zipped forward. It crunched over the glass and rolled into the dealership. Anne's pickup and the other ATV were alongside them. The tank gun swung around and fired again. The boom inside the dealership was deafening. It hit the building directly opposite the Napa Nissan, bringing down an avalanche of bricks and mortar. The tank fire had broken all the windows of the corner building. Cause accelerated past the tank, emerging onto the street on the other side. Anne was already there, leaning out of the driver's seat window with her rifle to shoot any sentient in sight. Cause brought the ATV to a stop beside Anne. He and Jennifer joined her, scanning the chaos for signs of escaping sentients. Her ears rang from the constant gunfire. If she survived the next few minutes, she might need hearing aids when this was all over. The tank fired again. More bricks and mortar rained down. Jennifer shot a sentient attempting to flee.
Anne brought down a second one. The tank rolled forward, grinding out of the dealership and onto the street. The farmers from Calistoga flooded into sight, all of them racing for Anne's truck. They were down several people, and several of them were wounded. "Get your asses in the truck!" Anne shrieked, firing over the heads of her people. "We'll cover you," Jennifer said. "Get the hell out of here!" Anne didn't argue. She dropped back into the driver's seat. As soon as the last of her people were loaded into the back, she floored it.
"Is everyone out?"
Cause asked. "I think so," Jennifer said, never taking her eyes from the grit that bellowed from the street. "Let's get the fuck out of here." Cause grabbed the handlebars and raced after the caravan. Jennifer scanned the group ahead, trying to account for everyone. She spotted Leo and Lena on their ATV, rolling alongside the tank. Amanda was on top of the tank with Spill driving the ATV. She glanced behind her, scanning for sentients. Two staggered from the rubble, but didn't pursue them. The truck in front of them came to an abrupt halt, the tires squealing on the asphalt and sending up a plume of burned rubber. The tank caravan continued on, never stopping. "What the fuck?" Jennifer spun around as Cause drew to a halt. She followed Anne's horrified gaze. They were in another intersection. Jennifer had glimpsed a group of people at the far end of the street where the Russians had attempted to herd them. Now she realized what it was she had seen. It was a row of 3 basketball courts. They were surrounded by a tall chain-link fence. Coils of barbed wire snaked across the top. Inside the courts were people. Living humans, all of them caged like animals. There were kids, grandparents, men and women of all ages, all of them dirty and corralled like meat in a factory. Standing guard around the courts were armed sentients. The kidnapped people from Calistoga, Jennifer realized, and probably people from Napa as well. Anne jerked the steering wheel of her truck and charged down the street, driving for the basketball court like a bat out of hell. Her people popped up and began to fire on the sentients. In front of her on the ATV, Cause tensed. He muttered something in Russian to himself. The tank caravan was already 2 blocks ahead of them. Jennifer knew she and Cause should catch up with the snipers. They'd agreed beforehand that the snipers would not take part in the rescue mission. They had a bigger mission on their plate, one that had the potential to save their entire country. Cause's hands were wide on the handles of the ATV.
"We need to leave,"
he said, but the ATV remained idle beneath him. He did not take his eyes off the caged people. Jennifer swallowed. "I have 2 grenades," she said. "That's enough to blow 2 holes in the fence. We can give those people a chance."
"Vengeance," Cause said. "I swore to avenge my wife and son. I swore it."
Just like Jennifer had sworn to avenge Cassie. Her stomach buckled at the memory of her sister, bleeding and bitten on Luma Bridge. "Maybe this is how we do it," Jennifer whispered. "We couldn't save our families, but maybe we can save these people." He glanced at her. Jennifer saw the torment in his eyes. She felt the same way on the inside. "Let's do this," she murmured. "We blow the fence, then get the fuck out of here." In reply, Cause cranked the handlebars. Jennifer dug her nails into his shirt as they zoomed down the street, straight for the basketball courts.